What if Darth Vader upgraded his suit? That's what we're diving into today. Surprised I haven't tackled this one. I've got another take that's very different, links in the description if you want that. But today it's all about Vader leveling up. I've been mulling over upgrades, mods, cybernetics. This take digs into tech, power, and consequence now, so buckle up and let's jump right in. It was a long time ago in a galaxy that had just begun to forget peace, and the Sith Lord newly forged in fire and betrayal drifted through hyperspace aboard his personal Star Destroyer. Vader stood suspended in a repulsor cradle, armor plates removed, the raw machinery of his life support exposed to stale air. It had been nearly a year since Mustafar, a year since the screams, the flames, the fall. Now he hung motionless while a team of repair droids worked to stabilize the damage tearing through his suit. Not long before this moment, Vader had been dispatched to eliminate Jedi Knight Darren Voss, a survivor who had reportedly been hiding alongside a Force-sensitive child on a remote ocean moon. Vader completed the mission. Voss' body now lay burning beneath ruined waves, but the duel left him heavily scarred again. His chest panel had shorted out mid-combat. Half the steel spine along his back had cracked from impact, and the lenses over both his photoreceptors were shattered. Worse, the child he sought had vanished before his arrival, leaving him with nothing but splintered metal and rage. Suspended above the deck like a corpse yet to be buried, Vader felt the trap he lived inside tightening. The suit, his cage, his curse, kept him alive while crushing everything else that made him human. He remembered fighting entire battalions during the Clone Wars without losing breath. Now a single Jedi Knight had nearly destroyed him. Had the loss of his limbs also torn away his strength in the Force? Someone spoke to him, or rather, a memory wearing his face did. It was Anakin, the echo of the boy he once was, the slave who dreamed of freedom, the hero who believed fate could be rewritten. The specter taunted him, whispering that he was weaker than he pretended, nothing more than a chained servant wearing black armor. A puppet, just as surely as he had been in the sands of Tatooine. Vader growled into the dark. He blamed the medical droids, blamed the engineers, blamed the choking armor that limited every motion. But the thought he tried hardest to bury clawed its way back. What if Palpatine designed the suit to weaken him? He knew the Emperor, knew his cruelty, his paranoia. Why give his apprentice strength when obedience was so much easier to maintain through limitation? Every plate, wire, and bolt felt intentional now. A prison disguised as protection. A leash disguised as life. Clenching his fist, Vader cursed the Force, the source of every vision that had tormented him since childhood. It had shown him Padme's death. It had shown him the fall. It had promised power, yet delivered only agony. Now he was reduced to a weapon doing errands for a master who rarely even spoke to him. He missed Padme. He missed Ahsoka. He missed Obi-Wan, though the hatred twisted inside him at the thought. He even missed Rex. He missed food, sleep, the warmth of sunlight, the feel of wind. All the things his suit forbade. If he allowed himself to dwell on it, he feared he would lose his mind entirely. So he obeyed. He hunted. He worked. Because what else could he do? The ship soon drifted out of hyperspace above the outer rim world of Varesh, a planet whose warrior clans had begun secretly aiding surviving Jedi. The moment his repairs concluded, Vader descended to the surface with a squadron of shuttles. But something about the landing felt wrong. The coordinates from the Imperial informant led them toward a narrow valley, too narrow. Vader sensed danger a heartbeat before it struck. Missiles streaked from the cliffs, obliterating 2 shuttles instantly. The pilot attempted evasive maneuvers, but a third missile slammed into Vader's transport. Vader tore open the hatch and hurled himself into the sky as the shuttle spiraled downward and exploded. All 5 shuttles crashed within moments, a coordinated trap. From the ridges and cavern mouths encircling the valley, armored warriors began descending. Their armor was rough but familiar, angular plating shaped in the style of old Kaleesh warlords. And leading them was Jedi Master Raiden Merrick, a survivor of the High Republic era, his presence burning bright in the Force. He ignited a green blade. Vader ignited red. The ambush began. The valley erupted into chaos as the Kaleesh warriors surged forward, electropoles crackling with violet energy. Their coordinated assault mirrored the ancient tactics once used by the infamous General Grievous. Vader immediately recognized the precision. Every movement meant to probe, overwhelm, or exploit the weaknesses of a cyborg body. Master Raiden Merrick wove between them like a serpent through grass, using the surrounding warriors as shields while darting in to strike at Vader's exposed joints. A blade scraped across Vader's shoulder, carving molten durasteel. Another sweep sliced across his thigh, sending a burst of sparks spiraling into the dirt. The Dark Lord staggered, his servomotors shrieking against the strain. The suit was failing him again. Breathing became ragged static. Vision flickered. Pain surged through every nerve conduit. The warriors tightened the circle. Vader's blade slashed through 3 at once, but more replaced them instantly, their electrostaffs hammering against him with relentless fury. Raiden moved behind them, ever waiting for the perfect moment, always targeting the places Palpatine had intentionally weakened. Vader roared and reached into the Force with raw fury. A nearby tree ripped from its roots and came crashing down, crushing several warriors beneath splintered bark. He hurled 2 more into a cliffside, shattering bones and armor alike. But Raiden kept coming. The Jedi Master lunged, carving across Vader's knee joint. The Dark Lord dropped to one leg as 3 Kaleesh slammed their staffs into him simultaneously. Feedback tore through his helmet, his respirator choked. For a moment, the galaxy dimmed. But Vader was not finished. His saber spun through the air, decapitating 2 warriors and cleaving a third through the torso. With a sweep of the Force, he hurled another trio off the cliff. Only Raiden remained. The Jedi circled him, tail draped low, breath steady despite the carnage. Then, with a sudden burst, he lashed forward and slammed his tail across Vader's chest, knocking him flat. Vader's saber skittered across the ground, sparks trailing behind it. Raiden lifted his blade for the killing blow. But the distant roar of engines filled the air, Imperial gunships descending fast. The distraction lasted only a second. But a second was too long. Vader's mechanical fingers clamped around Raiden's throat. His other hand seized the Jedi's tail. And with a surge of raw physical strength enhanced by decades of rage, the Sith Lord tore him apart, hurling the pieces over the cliff. Vader collapsed to his knees. He was still alive, but barely. And the suit was the reason. He could feel internal power cells burning out. His lungs spasmed with every intake of filtered air. The armor's weight crushed him, instead of protecting him. As blaster fire echoed throughout the valley, Imperial forces clearing the last of the resistance, Vader simply knelt, defeated by the limitations of the machine that kept him alive. Then he saw it. The fallen Kaleesh warrior at his feet wore plating that wasn't local, armor designed with the exact same mechanical framework as General Grievous' legendary enhancements. Not identical, but close enough to recognize instantly. This planet had been Grievous' ancestral home. His people must have salvaged the wreckage after the Clone War. They had stored it, preserved it, adapted it. For the first time in years, Vader felt something unexpected, possibility. If Grievous technology still existed, if it could be replicated, if it could be integrated, his mind whirled with the implications. The Emperor had strangled his potential with deliberate engineering, slow servos, outdated polymers, pain-inducing interfaces. But Grievous systems were engineered for speed, precision, masterability, efficiency. Vader rose weakly, forcing his failing limbs to stand. He followed the Kaleesh tracks into the cavern system carved into the valley walls. And then he found it. A vast underground hall lit by flickering torchlight. Walls lined with armor shells, limb replacements, skeletal plating, all reserves built for Grievous during the height of the Clone Wars. Rows and rows of unused augmentations, left untouched after his destruction. For Vader, it was like looking upon destiny. This was the answer he had sought since the moment he awoke on Mustafar. This was the key to breaking the chains Palpatine had locked around his body. This was how he would rise. Vader stood in the hollow silence of the chamber, the glow of his cracked lenses flickering across the metal shapes looming above him. His weakness had been engineered, but his strength? That he would engineer himself. He ordered the surviving Imperial forces to load the entire cache onto his Star Destroyer. Everything, every limb, every plate, every internal organ system. The hall was too large, but Vader pushed them until the entire cavern was stripped bare. From here, he returned to Mustafar. In the black halls of his fortress, he studied the recovered technology. He compared it to his suit's flawed systems, mapping weaknesses Palpatine had designed on purpose. The more he discovered, the angrier he became. Finally, he accessed Imperial intelligence files until he located the perfect specialist, Zyra Magnus, a genetic and cybernetic expert banned from the Republic for her radical research. Alongside her, he summoned a team of surviving Geonosian engineers, the same species that once built Grievous himself. They arrived terrified. Vader didn't care. He gave them simple instructions: rebuild me. Make me like Grievous, only stronger. And let no one know. And when the scientists questioned him, when they protested, when they feared the Emperor's wrath, Vader silenced them with a gesture. The needles injected into their necks contained a fabricated virus, one only Vader held the cure for. If they wanted to live, they would obey, no matter the cost. The preparations began. The chamber lights dimmed, and Vader lay upon the operating slab, knowing he might never rise again. Yet for the first time since Mustafar, he hoped he would. The laboratories of Fortress Vader had never been used for anything more ambitious than experimental torture devices and meditation chambers. But tonight, their purpose changed. Zyra Magnus and the Geonosian cybersmiths moved through the cold, red-lit halls in fearful silence, guided by the thunderous rhythm of Vader's mechanized breathing echoing from room to room. They knew what he wanted. They knew what he demanded. And they knew the price of failure. Vader rested on the central operating slab, armor stripped away piece by piece, leaving behind a shattered, burned body barely held together by the machinery grafted into him. His chest rose unevenly, each breath a metallic gasp scraped from a ruined lung. Pain had long since become his companion. Tonight, it became his fuel. He stared at Magnus with the full weight of his presence. "Begin," he commanded. The scientists hesitated, but the virus inside their blood pulsed like a reminder. They obeyed. The procedure was unlike anything attempted since the Clone Wars. Grievous had been rebuilt from a living Kaleesh warrior. Vader's body was something far more damaged, far more volatile. The biggest challenge was relocating and preserving his brain, spinal column, sensory relays, and what remained of his vital organs. The Geonosians chirped nervously as they sliced through durasteel plating and charred flesh. Sparks showered the room as Magnus rerouted Vader's neural pathways into a new hybrid exoskeleton forged from duranium alloy, stronger than Grievous, lighter than Vader's current suit, and designed to interface directly with the Force. His crushed legs were removed first, replaced with four-jointed LX-77 augment limbs, descendants of Grievous' legendary mechanical systems, modified for enhanced torque and stability. Then came the replacement of his spine, rebuilt with microservo coils that allowed faster rotation and explosive acceleration. Vader did not flinch. Vader did not scream. Vader simply endured. His eyes were extracted and transplanted into new ocular frames, granting him the clarity he had been denied for a year. His artificial lungs were discarded, replaced with an internal respiratory system capable of supporting his body even without a mask. A synthetic gut sac, armored and resistant to vacuum pressure, encased his remaining organs. Hours passed, then more still. It was the closest Vader had come to death since Mustafar. His presence faded, flickering in the Force like a candle resisting a storm. Magnus and her team worked feverishly, knowing the Dark Lord's vengeance would be absolute if he awoke to failure. When the final plating was sealed, Magnus stepped back with trembling hands. What lay on the slab was terrifying. A refined version of Vader, sleek, smooth, powerful. More compact than the bulky suit he'd worn since Mustafar, yet far more deadly. Servos hummed with quiet precision. Energy coils glowed faint crimson along the spine. His limbs looked like carved obsidian overlaid with living metal. But the armor still resembled Vader's original silhouette, by his command. No one would realize how much he had changed. Now came the moment of truth. The Geonosians activated the core. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the body convulsed, the lights flickering as the new power system roared to life. A deep, resonant breath echoed through the chamber, vastly smoother than before, almost natural. Energy pulsed across his limbs. The sensors awoke, perceiving the world with striking clarity. Darth Vader opened his eyes. The scientists froze. He rose from the slab without assistance. No struggling, no servos screeching. His movement was fluid, almost silent. When he reached out with the Force, the machines around him shook violently from the sheer pressure of his presence. Vader studied the room, then turned his gaze to the scientists. Zyra Magnus took an involuntary step back. "How do you feel?" she whispered. Vader rotated his wrist, marveling at its speed. He flexed each limb, feeling strength surge through them like lightning. Then he lifted his hand. His lightsaber flew into his palm. He activated it, not in clumsy arcs, but with the precise grace of the Jedi Knight he once had been. For the first time since Mustafar, he felt whole. How do I feel? Vader repeated softly. He moved. In a blur, he struck. Magnus never had time to scream. The Geonosians scattered, but Vader was already moving faster than their eyes could track. He carved through the entire team, every scientist who knew the truth of his rebirth, just as he had once done in the Jedi Temple. No witnesses, no loose ends. When the last body fell, Vader deactivated the saber. He stood in silence, listening to the hum of his new systems. No pain, no strain, no limitations. Each breath came smoothly, the old mechanical rattle finally gone. He was stronger, faster, sharper. The chosen one, unbound at last. Vader stepped forward, the ground trembling beneath his improved weight. He walked toward the hangar, his cloak sweeping behind him, moving with the certainty of a warrior reborn. On Coruscant, the Emperor paused. Something felt different. Something felt wrong. But the truth of Vader's evolution had only begun. Far across the stars, the Emperor felt a disturbance ripple through the Force. It was sharp, sudden, and powerful enough to cut through the haze of corruption that surrounded him. For the first time since claiming Vader as his apprentice, Palpatine felt doubt gnaw at his certainty. Reports soon reached him, rumors from stormtrooper captains, whispers in the Imperial network, encrypted logs from Mustafar. Jedi were dying in greater numbers than ever. Entire cells wiped out with no survivors. But the strangest detail struck him hardest. Vader wasn't taking injuries anymore. Palpatine frowned. That was impossible. Vader limped away from every battle. That was the natural order. That was by design. And yet the Force told him something had changed. Unacceptable. He could not allow an apprentice, even a broken one, to gain strength beyond his reach. So he summoned the Grand Inquisitor, then the fifth brother, then the seventh sister, then every blade, every hunter, every asset he had forged to maintain Vader's leash. 12 Inquisitors in total, the deadliest agents the Empire possessed. Their mission was simple: destroy Vader, or bring him back in chains. Under no circumstances were they to allow him to evolve beyond the Emperor's control. The Inquisitors obeyed. They boarded a black shuttle designed for covert seizure operations, reinforced restraints, stasis pods, and nullifying cuffs built with Vader's weaknesses in mind. The same devices that had held renegade Jedi would now be used on the Emperor's apprentice. Hours later, they approached Mustafar. Inside the fortress, Vader floated in a Bacta tank, actually sleeping. Truly, deeply sleeping. That was something he had not done since he was Anakin Skywalker. His new systems allowed it. His new body required it. His mind had begun to remember the sensation of rest. But rest would not last. In mid-dream, the Force shifted. The air around the tank vibrated. An approaching signature, 12 dark, burning with hunger and ambition. Vader's eyes snapped open. He surged out of the tank, water cascading from his enhanced body. He didn't gasp, didn't choke, didn't claw at the mask for breath. Instead, he inhaled deeply, smooth, effortless. A reminder of what he had become. He reached for his lightsaber. Then he paused. Palpatine always said the Sith only kept lightsabers to mock the Jedi. But now, Vader felt no need for one. He placed the hilt back on its stand. Let Sidious see what a Sith without chains looked like. The Inquisitors landed outside the fortress, moving with predatory silence as they crept into the obsidian halls. They spread out, blades unignited, planning to corner Vader in his meditation chamber. They believed they held the element of surprise. They did not. Vader's senses had expanded far beyond what his old suit allowed. He felt each footstep, each breath, each pulse of fear and arrogance within the Inquisitors' minds. He stepped into the corridor just as they crossed the threshold. And then, the lights died. The fortress plunged into total darkness. Red blades ignited one by one, painting the hallways in streaks of crimson. The Grand Inquisitor signaled for silence as he scanned the shadows. Then 2 Inquisitors lifted off the floor, gasping, choking, claws at their throats as an unseen force crushed their windpipes. Their bodies slammed into opposite walls hard enough to shatter bone. They fell limp. Vader stepped from the darkness. No mechanical wheeze, no labored breathing, only the deadly calm of a predator unbound. The remaining Inquisitors attacked. They rushed him with synchronized strikes, blades spiraling, acrobatics slicing through the shadows. They moved with training directly shaped by Vader himself. It did not matter. Before the first saber even reached him, Vader unleashed a shockwave of force power that sent all 10 flying backward like ragdolls. Their sabers dimmed, flickering under the pressure of his presence. The walls cracked. The floor buckled. The Grand Inquisitor stared in horror. "Impossible," he whispered. Vader moved. In a blur, he seized one Inquisitor by the skull and crushed it with his enhanced grip. 2 more were forced to turn their spinning blades on themselves, impaled before they realized his influence had overridden their reflexes. Bodies slammed against pillars. Stone shattered. The fortress shook. 5 Inquisitors remained. Vader raised his hand. They froze midair, paralyzed. Weapons dropped from their hands. Their minds screamed in terror. Vader held them there for a heartbeat, long enough to let them feel the enormity of the mistake they had made. Then he unleashed a single massive force push. They flew across the chamber, through solid durasteel, through the outer wall, and plummeted into the molten rivers of Mustafar below. Silence returned. Vader stood alone, the glow of lava illuminating his new armor. He felt no exhaustion, no pain, no weakness, only clarity. This was what he was meant to be. No more chains, no more limits. Now only one remained. Palpatine. Vader walked to the landing bay, stepping over the scorched ground where the Inquisitor shuttle had settled. He entered the ship, found the stasis cell designed to hold him, and examined it. Then he smiled behind the mask. He knew exactly who it would hold instead. He powered the shuttle, set its course for Coruscant, and lifted off into the starry void. The Emperor's reign was about to end. The shuttle tore through Coruscant's atmosphere like an omen. Vader sat in the cockpit, the city planet unfolding beneath him in a grid of cold lights and colder law. Every transmission from the Imperial Center crackled with routine complacency until his arrival. He docked in silence, slipping through corridors until the steps of the Imperial Palace rose before him, black and towering as a judgment. In the throne room, Palpatine sat as always, a figure wrapped in excess and calculation. His eyes flicked, sensing something foreign move through the web of the Force. Then the doors burst inward and Vader stood tall, a darker silhouette than any had seen before. The royal guard surged, but Vader's shadow consumed them. He crushed the nearest sentry's helmet in one hand, bones and armor folding like paper, and the rest fell back in frozen shock. Palpatine rose, amusement curdling into annoyance. "You overstep," he hissed. "You were meant to serve." "No," Vader said. The voice was low and shaped by new certainty. "I will rule." The Emperor unleashed lightning, crackling white and hungry. Vader did not flinch. He vaulted above the storm, catching the arcs in his armor as if the bolts were rain. The energy coursed through his chassis, and did not stop him. Palpatine drew a blade, but the crystal inside refused to sing. Vader's hand had squeezed it until it fractured, the core detonating in a shower of sparks that buried the throne in ash. Smoke and flame filled the chamber. Palpatine lunged, fury unmasked, but Vader moved with a grace that was not the old machine's grind. He used the Force like a spear, a tool of absolute command. Gripped by power, Palpatine was no match. Vader snapped his limbs and bound him with belts of telekinetic iron. He spoke softly as he sealed the Emperor in the repurposed stasis prison, a cold cell intended for rebels and traitors. "Live," he said, "until you remember the taste of defeat." Vader did not kill him. He turned the moment into domination. He left Palpatine alive and imprisoned, a living monument to the failure of the one who had made him less. Then he walked through the crumbling corridors and into the Imperial bureaucracy, like a shadow that claimed offices and decrees as it passed. He appointed governors and lieutenants who would do more than wield power. They would purge dissent and root out hope. Moff Tarkin accepted the role Vader offered with the private satisfaction of a man who had always loved order. Others were promoted or removed. Vader ruled with a cold clarity. Where Palpatine had permitted rebellion to flicker and be stamped in public spectacles, Vader extinguished it without ceremony. No mercy, no pageantry, just absolute application of force. He accelerated programs Palpatine had only dabbled in. Cloning facilities were reopened and expanded, but with purpose, to produce soldiers who would not question orders, engineered for loyalty and obedience. The process was brutal and swift. Millions of clones poured into service across decades, their faces blank and efficient. They were not the soldiers of the Republic. These were instruments of enforcement. Vader forbade apprentices. The galaxy would have no new Sith heir to someday challenge him. He would be the final arbiter of the Force. So he hunted. Jedi and Force sensitives were dragged from hiding, interrogated, and erased. He framed dissenters and staged arrests that made ordinary citizens fear for their neighbors. He falsified communications, planted evidence, and watched as entire planetary senates collapsed beneath accusations of treason. Corruption and suspicion spread like fungus. On Tatooine, tragedy unfolded as an example. Obi-Wan Kenobi was framed for Palpatine's disappearance, and his name broadcast across systems as a murderer. The Empire offered bounties, neighbors turned in neighbors. A desperate Owen Lars, terrified for his family, cooperated. He revealed the man who had once been a guardian. An Imperial ordinance reigned on a farm. The Lars household was obliterated. Luke Skywalker died in the blast. Kenobi vanished, hunted and broken, and ultimately cornered. This was Vader's method, terror for obedience. Meanwhile, he abandoned Palpatine's alchemies to resurrect the dead Emperor whole. Instead, he pursued a more practical plan: economies of force and armies of the manufactured. He used cloning not to make rulers, but to stock his legions, to replace loss with quantity and ruthless efficiency. Years folded into decades. Entire systems learned to cower. The Jedi, already fragmented, dwindled to myth and then to shadows until Vader stood alone in the Force, a dark monolith. He installed the Jedi Council's artifacts in the palace as trophies, a perverse coronation that mocked what had once upheld balance. Yet the rule was not without cost. In the quiet nights, the man beneath the mask dreamed of fields and of a woman's laugh, of a child's hand. He had excised pieces of himself to become whole in metal and hate, but memories rose like embers. Sometimes he would stand before a sealed chamber and listen, Palpatine's breathing like a distant storm, and wonder what else remained of Anakin inside him. Then he would tighten his fist and send another fleet to smother dissent. As decades turned, his reach grew absolute. Planets that resisted were razed, their cultures replaced. He established a council, an assembly of administrators, military minds, and scientists, who bureaucratized terror into policy. The galaxy bent under his rule. But the Force is more patient than empires. Whispers turned into murmurs. Hidden pockets of resistance learned to hide deeper, to strike with precision. Legends spoke of a ghostly figure on the desert moons, of an old man with a keen blade. Still, none could match the shadow that Vader cast. In the end, his ascension was complete. Palpatine remained frozen, a prisoner and an emblem. Vader sat upon a throne forged from the bones of war, crowned not by ceremony, but by the silent obedience of a galaxy that had learned the price of hope. And as he sat, a single thought passed through the metal and memory: balance, enforced, absolute, irreversible. That was his choosing. From him and folks, that is our story. If you want one that explores Vader kind of becoming more powerful and exploring the path of bringing Padme back to life, which is something I didn't explore at all in this one link in the description for that video. I enjoyed that one as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Shout out to all the members on YouTube, sitting at about 20 right now. Much appreciated. You guys get videos a priority. Comments on all videos and a sneak peek at what the next video is going to be every time I upload, so appreciate the members. If you want to sign up, link also in the description. Let's talk about our story. I really wanted to do a what if Vader upgraded his armor for a while, but I don't always like to do videos that are kind of because a lot of people have done this video, right? And I'm worried that if I do it, it'll be kind of copying what others have done. I don't watch what others have done, because I fear that'll kind of just make me write the same story. So I hope this was different. I think I at least implemented my own few things. I love the idea of Vader ditching a lightsaber. I love the idea of Vader kind of imprisoning Palpatine and just having him trapped there forever. I do really enjoy, and I also love the idea of him becoming basically the only Force user, the chosen one, if you will. I liked a lot of the concepts I put in this. Hope you guys did as well. Overall, I really did love this video. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.